You've been showing up every day, every deadline, every difficult project that landed on your desk because someone decided you were the one who could handle it. You've built a reputation. You've earned it. You have the ratings, the relationships, the institutional knowledge that took years to develop. You are, by every visible measure, doing exactly what you were told to do. And every year, a number arrives. And every year, you nod. Not because the number is right, because you don't know what right looks like. That is the invisible rule, not the one printed in your offer letter, the one operating underneath it, the one the system was never designed to explain to you. My name is Jackson, and what I'm about to show you has nothing to do with working harder. It has everything to do with what you don't know. Picture someone, no name, 6 years, at the same company, senior role, consistently strong performance reviews, the kind of reviews where phrases like exceeds expectations appear next to the rating, the kind of employee whose name is offered first when something critical needs to be handled. Friday afternoon, performance review. The manager slides a number across the table. 3%. Inflation, plus a small margin. Fine. Reasonable. The employee nods, says thank you, and walks back to their desk. That evening, they opened a personal spreadsheet. Not a work one, a quiet, private document built over 2 years. Market salary data, job postings, numbers shared in confidence by former colleagues who left for other companies. They stare at the column that shows the gap between what the market currently pays for their exact role and what they currently earn. The gap is not a rounding error. It sits somewhere between 18 and 23%. They close the laptop. The question they're left holding is the one most people ask at that moment. Am I not performing well enough? That is the wrong question entirely. And the fact that it feels like the right one is precisely how the system stays intact. This is not a performance problem. This is a structural problem. And the structure has a name. Mechanism number 1, the compensation band. Every role inside a company sits within a defined pay range. A floor, a midpoint, a ceiling. This is called a compensation band, and it is calibrated to market data collected at the time the band was built, which may have been 3 years ago or 5. The band does not update automatically. It updates when HR runs a full compensation review, which happens infrequently, incompletely, and almost never in the existing employee's favor unless the company is actively recruiting for that same role from outside. Within your band, performance moves you upward toward the midpoint, then toward the ceiling. Deliver consistently excellent work for enough years, and eventually you reach it. Not the ceiling of what you're worth, the ceiling of what the band mathematically permits. At that point, the annual raise is no longer a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of a structure that has nowhere left to send you. The system has classified you as fully compensated, and so it stops. The raise you receive is not a judgment of your performance. It is a function of where you sit inside a band you were never shown. Mechanism number 2, the loyalty penalty. Labor economics has a name for what accumulates silently over years of internal raises. It is called the loyalty penalty. The mechanism is straightforward. When a company recruits externally, it prices the role at current market rates, because it has to. The candidate has options. The market sets the price. When a company gives an existing employee a raise, it prices against the band, against the prior year's number, against a budget allocation that was set before the conversation began. The result, compounded across a decade, is measurable and significant. Employees who change companies every 2 to 3 years consistently out-earn employees who rely on internal raises alone. Not because they are more skilled, not because they perform at a higher level, but because external hiring is priced at market rate and internal raises are priced against a structure that moves slowly if it moves at all. The loyalty penalty is not a rumor. It is a structural output of a system optimized to keep compensation costs predictable and contained. Staying has a price. Most people pay it without ever seeing the invoice. Mechanism number 3, the information asymmetry. When a manager sits across from an employee in a performance review, that manager typically holds a specific set of facts the employee does not. They know where the employee's salary sits, within the band. They know the band ceiling. They know what the market pays for that role because HR runs that analysis during external recruitment, even when the results are never shared internally. They know what replacing that employee would cost. The employee knows their current number, last year's percentage, and whatever they've assembled from informal conversations and public job postings. The gap between those two information sets is not a detail. It is the entire negotiation. Every high-stakes exchange is determined by who holds the most complete picture of the underlying reality. In salary conversations, that party is structurally, almost always, the employer. Not because employers are adversarial by nature, but because the system was never designed to close that gap proactively. The company's opening position every year is whatever it calculates you will accept. Your position is whatever you know. The distance between those two things is the ceiling. Here is what makes this particularly precise in its damage. It worsens with time. Every year that passes inside the band with no external reference point is a year the gap between your internal compensation and your market value quietly widens. The market does not wait. Demand shifts. Skill premiums rise. Companies hiring from outside pay accordingly. Your number moves 3%. The market moves 5%. The following year, the same. And the year after, 5 years in, the compounding is no longer a gap. It is a structural disadvantage that touches every financial decision you make. What you can invest, what you can save, what options remain available to you when circumstances change and you need them not to. Most employees discover this only when something forces the number into the light. A competing offer, a colleague's accidental disclosure, a job search they began for entirely different reasons. By then, years have already passed. The compensation lost in that period does not return. There is no correction mechanism built into the system that closes the gap on your behalf. The system will not spontaneously recalibrate in your favor. The ceiling functions perfectly. It was built to. The change in thinking required here is not emotional. It is operational. Your compensation is not a reward issued at the end of a performance cycle. It is a negotiation that never fully closes. There is no moment the number becomes permanent. There is no year the company spontaneously corrects the gap. The system issues what it calculates, you will accept every single time. The only variable is what you know when you sit down, which means the work is informational before it is conversational. Move 1. Build a documented market position. Not a vague sense that you're underpaid a specific, sourced, defensible number. Cross-reference salary data from multiple credible platforms. Speak to people who have recently made lateral moves in your field. Map your exact scope of responsibility against comparable roles at comparable organizations. When you have a number you can defend with evidence, you are no longer guessing. You are negotiating. Move 2. Request a compensation conversation separate from the performance review cycle. These two discussions serve different functions. A performance review evaluates your contribution. A compensation conversation evaluates your market position. Conflating them gives the structure the advantage. Separating them gives you space to address the band directly, specifically with data in hand. Move 3. When you bring the conversation, lead with the market data, not with emotion, not with tenure, not with a list of contributions. Data cannot be dismissed as opinion. A documented market range, presented calmly and specifically, requires a structural response. It dissolves the information asymmetry the system depends on. When the company knows that you know the number, the fiction that a 3% offer reflects your market value cannot survive the room. The ceiling does not break under pressure. It breaks under information. None of this requires confrontation. None of it requires leverage or ultimatums or manufactured urgency. What it requires is a shift in how you understand the exchange. You were told, in some form, at the beginning of your career, that the way compensation works is simple. Perform well, get recognized, earn more. That framework is not false. It is incomplete. It describes the surface mechanics while leaving the underlying structure unnamed. The structure was always there. The band, the asymmetry, the loyalty penalty, these are not anomalies. They are design features of a system that functions exactly as intended. You were never the problem. You were simply playing by rules that were only partially disclosed. The full rulebook does not arrive on your first day. You build it yourself through research, through information, through the discipline to treat your own market value as something worth understanding with the same precision you bring to everything else. Most people spend their entire careers waiting for someone to correct a gap. The system has no structural incentive to correct. The number on your pay stub is not a verdict. It is a starting position. The only question is whether you know enough to move it. If this is the first time you've seen the structure, clearly subscribe to Jackson Invest. Every video on this channel is built to hand you the part of the rulebook you were never given. My name is Jackson. I'll see you in the next one.